Hello, this is Clinton and Hillary, and welcome to another episode of Black Lanik, a podcast and media channel bringing East Coast voices to the world.
This week, it is my pleasure. It is my honor to have one of my best friends as our guest, Ivor Pinder, who works in luxury sales here in Toronto. And we're going to get into his background, his job, our friendship, I assume a little bit, and all of that fun stuff. Make sure that you are liking, commenting, subscribing, rating, donating, all of the things, so that, you can keep up with the podcast. Did I forget anything?
You got it all. No, just podcast is weekly with guests and topics, and yeah, you got it all. You just find us anywhere online by searching Black Lanik, whichever direction.
I appreciated Ivor saying you got it all, because I do know that you have listened to this podcast, much to my own embarrassment, and have listened to me on several other media things. And so I appreciate that you're like, no, you got your own intro correct. Thank you.
You crushed it. You absolutely crushed it. And before we start, thank you so much for having me on here. It's an absolute honor for both of you. And yes, friends with Hillary, but you're both doing such an amazing job of bringing, so
budding friendship.
I think that's it. It's fast friends all the way around. So thank you.
We're happy to have you.
Amazing.
I'm gonna cry into my water glass. Please hold.
Please don't. Okay, now it's a water imbibement.
Just don't burp into the water glass. Like we discussed
everyone
before
listening
the show.
and watching.
Everybody burps.
Did you have the briefer on that? Oh my God. Okay.
Ivor, how are you doing today?
I'm having a fantastic day. It's been full on. It's been fun. I've had the pleasure of seeing you, which has been great. And I'm seeing you again. I'm meeting Clinton for the first time. The universe is really doing a lot today. I love it.
The universe is doing so much. Yes, I fortunately I finally did some shopping in the place that you work today. And also tried some things on that people will be able to see in the future. Very bougie day today, despite oversleeping and throwing my whole self off schedule. Clinton, how are you today?
I'm great. Things have been going well.
I'm shocked. No kidding.
Business is doing great. Online stores booming. This podcast is great. Ivor, I live on farmland nowadays, so we're putting up new chicken fence, big no-dig garden, 20 by 40 feet. Lots of outdoor. We planted fruit trees this week. It's been really nice, spending lots of time outdoors. And I grew up in Toronto, and I remember 20 years ago, I even joked about one day living in a house in the country by the river, and that's where I am. And I'm good. I'm great. How are you, Hillary? You've had a busy week.
Listen,
understatement.
Ivor's in there every step of the way, bringing me home every single night, making sure I am not a hooligan, making sure I don't get into shenanigans, because if you shenan once,
thank you,
shenanigan.
I feel it's a public service at this point, to be honest. But yeah.
It is. No, I mean, we had like the best week ever personally for me, and my feelings about my personal career. This was a killer week. It's like charity gala week before everyone goes to their cottages in the summer. So it was charity supporting sick kids, supporting the Canadian AIDS Research Foundation, a ton of other things, planning the upcoming week of events that will have passed once this airs. And then our Fashion Group International Pride panel that I'm co-hosting with my best friend Mason. So just like a lot of extracurriculars on top of work. I'll be at a conference for the next 3 days. Things are crazy, but I don't want to pass over that you have a post that's going viral right now on Instagram that has like 6 million views, Clinton.
Oh yeah, that's pretty wild. It's not my post.
I think you deserve your flowers for 3 seconds. Go on.
It's completely random. No. Yeah, I've been really amping up the promotion on our Solana website, and it was actually completely random. It's not a post I can take credit for. I found something that I like and I reposted it, which is kind of the norm nowadays. It's by Paper Pepper. It's this cute video of someone. I'd have to explain it. Maybe I'll play a clip of it later. But yeah, it's currently sitting at 6 million views, 5,000 shares, 55,000 likes. It's just wild. And so it's just good for the page. So it's growing the page. The page is getting more and more likes, which can help with the online store and stuff like that. Yeah, it's been interesting to watch.
Can I just ask a random question as a person who's never had that level of success when it comes to posting or reposting? What's it like when your phone's going off? Like going off?
You'd have to ask the business manager at the salon, because I don't Hillary knows me and phones. Like I'm
Checking your
I'm tired of phones. Yeah, a lot of my notifications are turned off for a lot of things.
Good to know.
And then the ones that are on, he doesn't hear them go off. So like things will ding 7 times.
So I got the smartwatch though. It helps.
Oh.
Smart.
Yeah, people are always telling me, Clinton, your phone's going off.
Smart.
I mean, I'll brag that when our TikToks went viral and my phone was never-endingly going off, I was just like, I've done something bad. I thought something had gone wrong. I was like, we're under attack. And then it turned out that I just talked about white people wearing box braids.
That'll do it. That'll do it.
Yeah, that black hair issues, especially coming from white girl that you were stitching. That is the perfect storm.
Canceled later. A lot of our viral videos, the person who's posted them has since been canceled. So,
did they do that really weak apology before they got canceled? Did they do that kind of like, I didn't mean to, I didn't, and then disappeared into the ether?
I didn't do that much research, but I know one of them didn't even do the weak apology. They were just like, no, what I'm doing is right. And then they were like, you're actually harming the Black community. And they were like, nope. And then I guess caused
Amateur. All right.
Wild. Cool. But yeah, anyways, I turn my notifications off for so much. I just want to live. I'm out in the country. I want to live a bit. I want to relax.
That's a dream. That's honestly a dream I've always had.
I check it every once in a while, and I have to check it for work and business. But yeah.
So back to you and your dreams.
Yeah, let's talk about Ivor, please.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned before the show, although obviously I know you, but as you did mention before the show, having been British and lived there, so give us a little bit of your backstory. How do you end up living outside of Toronto, Ontario?
Toronto. It's actually a story that's driven mostly by my parents more so than myself, obviously because I was so young. But when I was born in a place called Hammersmith, which is in London. And at about the age of 3.5, my mom came up with this fantastic idea. Let's pick up all of our stuff and go to a climate that's cold 8 months of the year and try to make it there. And that's what we did. We packed up all of our stuff. We left Hammersmith. We went to Oshawa, Ontario. And I only laugh because I probably spend more time there than anywhere else on the planet. I love that city. It's my city. It has its problems, got it, but I love it. It's like every city. So we grew up there. I was there to the age of 16. I went to primary school there, secondary school there. Age of 16, my mom had another thought. She's like, yeah, let's move back to the UK now. Like I don't know why, but anyway, so we all go back, and that's where things kind of changed fundamentally for me. I went back at 16 years of age with no understandable identity at that time. You grow up in somewhere like Durham region or in Oshawa, I didn't have a really strong connection to the Black community at that time. When we talk about code switching, my mom was fantastic at it, to the point where when I first saw it, it scared me. I'm like, who is this woman and why is she speaking patois? And now she's calling and speaking to Sally, literally her friend named Sally, and it's a different human being behind there. And that was kind of my first inkling of, there's a duality when it comes to me and the person I am and how it is to be within this world. So then I go back to the UK, and this duality is not needed. You've kind of chosen a side. You're either to the Black side or to the other side, whatever side that may be, which was a bit of a weird one. Anyway, so ended up finishing college there, started working in retail, and then kind of went up the ranks there, got to the store manager level, and then worked for a couple of famous luxury department stores over there. And then I moved to online, worked for an online company that's probably one of the fastest growing logistics and luxury companies on the planet. And then at that same time, I met my wife. She's from mainland China, which was another interesting point to see kind of Chinese culture come crashing into British West Indian culture, and what did that look like, and have two beautiful little girls as the result of that. And then we had a situation where her mom took ill, and we decided to kind of sell everything we had in the UK and move over to China, which was the worst year of my life. Best year because I got to understand what China was about. Worst year because I realized that actually I'm an extrovert. I need to talk to people, and if I don't, I lose my mind. So when you can't communicate to somebody, and when you're trying to learn a language, that becomes a massive challenge. So that was fantastic for me. And then after a year, I'm like, let's go to Canada again, because I think maybe my mom had it right the first time. So I went back to Canada, and here I am in Toronto.
Wow.
Time.
Can I? That's
a lot.
Quite a journey. Yeah,
I know.
Quite a journey. It's interesting. Can I ask, what is China like from the perspective of yourself?
It's interesting when I say that because when I first got there, I went there with the rose tinted glasses. I've always liked
Hmm.
Asian culture, so Japanese and Chinese culture, whether it be martial arts, anime, all of that kind of stuff. I was that guy. I did taekwondo when
For
I was
sure.
younger. I did, I loved karate. All those kind of things. I was a Power Ranger fan. I'm from that generation. Let's put it that way. So it
Okay.
was great for me for the first 2 or 3 months. What I did find quite quickly was some of the cultural norms that we deal with here in the Western world aren't the same in Eastern culture. So, for example, as a person who is black in a country where there are no black people, you start to do the scan of looking for other black people quite regularly. You're looking for anything else that looks somewhat relevant, just somewhat similar to home. So that starts. The other thing that
Okay.
happens is that, again, in terms of communication, I can't really communicate with anybody. So my Mandarin's much better now after a year of putting it together. And, my daughter speaks fluent Mandarin and all that kind of stuff. Same with my wife. But initially, it was a sense of complete isolation in terms of communication and a sense of hand holding through my journey there. But the most challenging part was stairs. In Chinese culture, anything that's novel or unique, there's no desertion. They're not going to sit there and kind of look at you slightly and kind of look away. They're going to look you dead in the eye and be like, "Oh, you're black." So
Okay. Yeah.
for me in the West or in London, that means that you want to fight. So I had to turn off my fight my fight mode in my mind because everybody's staring you down. Would I say that China is inherently racist? No. Would I say that China hasn't had a lot of exposure to black people or black culture? Yes. And they see black people as almost like a unique, an oddity in that sense. So everything about me, people wanted to understand or get to understand. I only understood for a short period of time what it's like to be a celebrity because your privacy is shot. Anywhere I went, I was either being photographed, looked at, spoken about, and then I'm starting to understand stuff everywhere I went. So you can picture me trying to eat pizza at this one pizza place I found in all of China and having 35 people of varying ages and groups stare at me as I eat this pizza. Now I ate the pizza, Clinton. I don't care. I'm hungry and I wanted pizza. But but it was very unnerving. So that was a tougher side from a cultural he's cracking. That was a tougher side from a cultural point of view. On the flip side, Chinese people and my family who are Chinese were the most hospitable people on the planet. Super welcoming and warm, very lovely. In China, the sense of family is something that I look to in other cultures. I don't see as much. Spring
Yep.
Festival is a festival that happens kind of in the February, March time before the Moon Festival. And every part of your family, like Thanksgiving in the US, I guess is the closest equivalent, will fly in and there's speeches going on. And I mean, we're 35, 40 people deep. They're all drinking beer and Ganbei's their term for cheers. But Ganbei, to show respect, you down the whole glass, which is like a smaller tumbler glass of beer. After 4 or 5 of those, you're feeling pretty nice. And people are saying speeches for 10 or 15 minutes. But there's a true sense of family and familiarity and comfort and support and a network, which I think is one of the things that are very advantageous for anybody who lives in China. So it was a lot, is probably the answer.
Wow.
Concisely.
Thanks for
It's a lot.
I that was a nicely painted picture. I kind
Mm.
of saw a lot about what it might be like to be there. Thanks for that. I see a lot of parallels between even New Brunswick, where I live now, and
Mm.
the time I spent in Egypt. But yeah, Western culture, I guess, where it's more focused on individualism. Eastern tends to be more focused on staying together and the unit. Is that where you're kind of?
Oh, absolutely, and to the point where when I had uncles, or we call them Ardayans and Ardanyans. It's interesting within the culture. There is there's a structure within inside there. So for me, as a older uncle, I kind of came in at mid tier. If you're thinking like Game of Thrones, I'm like mid tier, and uncles and aunts would take me for tours around some of their museums just to explain what's it about in terms of Chinese culture and where their dynasties came from and where their gods came from, all that kind of stuff. So it was super interesting.
Wow.
Super
Cool.
interesting.
Cool.
Man, I didn't even know all of that, and that's
I
incredible.
was saving it.
You were saving it for this moment. The minute you mentioned the pizza, I started to cry laughing. It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Tough day. It was a tough day.
To that point, though, because I feel like we've had a couple of guests before who've spent time, or Gary Weeks, the photographer from New Brunswick, who is from England and moved to New Brunswick,
Yep.
spoke to like his perspective on Blackness in the UK versus at least the immediate New Brunswick. Which, pausing for a second, where in the Maritimes have you been? Have you been?
I haven't. I have not. Okay. See, I didn't want to say that because I knew you were going to do that. But it's only for the fact of, look, for me, when I first came back to Canada, well, when I lived in Canada, I don't think you really go for a tour. Max doesn't even like it.
Max is really
he's offended. But for me, I didn't really go and see places like Ottawa and stuff like that until I came back the second time. Partly due to age, but also probably just down to the fact that it's around the corner. It's like going to the CN Tower and living in Toronto. You don't really do that. So I am remiss in the fact I haven't been out there, but it's also one of those things I would love to, because now I've met so many people from New Brunswick, from PEI and whatnot, who tell me great stories about that sense of community out there and how things are slightly different. Sounds great.
So to that point, the real question I was going... Oh, sorry, Clinton, go ahead.
Nothing. I was going to say a lot of people in Toronto don't even know what the East Coast is, like Quebec, like after Montreal, like that's where Canada ends, right? So the fact that you know about the Maritimes, you're doing good.
Straight up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was just gonna ask about more extrapolation on your opinion of like blackness / racism in the UK versus when you like your time in Canada and then coming back after you left China as well, and like how all of those have sort of colored your perception of life and people and how people have perceived you. If you can speak to that while I hold my child.
Well, hold your child. Love you, Max. It's very interesting because I think that whereas people say that most major cities are a melting pot, I think England actually, or London specifically, actually is. And I say it in the fact of, I don't think that culturally there's a segregation. You go to most major cities, there's a Chinatown, there's a Greek town, there's an Italian area, so on and so forth. There are those things within London, but I'd say for the most part, when you're in a pub or in a restaurant, you could talk to somebody beside you, and it may not be the most extravagant conversation, but you can have that conversation. You can share a bit about each of your cultures, and there's a sense of openness to it. Within race itself, race is a massive challenge within the UK that I found. One thing I found super interesting: my father unfortunately passed away in 2009. And it's kind of weird from a West Indian family how many secrets are unlocked when a member of the family dies. And my grandmother, what I realized quite quickly is my grandmother's not going to be around for much longer. I better start asking her the questions that actually are important. All right. So I asked her what it's like to be a mixed race woman coming to England in the 1930s. My God, the responses blew my mind. She's like, Ivor, I remember when I was pushing your father and somebody spat in his pram because he was a baby and called him a coon baby. That these things happen. So one thing I found super interesting from that is looking at my grandmother, who was a very, very strong woman, which I think all West Indian women of that time had to be. You couldn't be a weak woman and travel the trip that it was on the boat that it was to the land that is, the Great Britain. Only country that puts the suffix great in front of it. I don't understand why that, but anyway, you know what I mean? But to travel to that place and then to be treated the way that you're treated and still trying to get a foothold inside of that country and being denied places to live, being denied jobs flat out to your face, and not that kind of nicey nice that we get now of, you're not the right fit or anything like that. Just flat out, you're black. What are you even doing here? So that's one thing. We talk about the Brixton riots, which is a major point of contention within, black culture within there. One of the things I spoke about when I came back here, I had the privilege of speaking at York University. A friend of mine who was a professor there had me come in and speak for a day. And I was talking about Mark Duggan, who was a mixed race guy who was known to police. And he was essentially shot and killed in the back of a minicab or an Uber on his way to a friend's house. They had stopped the car. He had been known to carry weapons in the past. I think he went to go reach for his seatbelt. That was enough. And he was shot. That instigated the London riots that kicked off because his parents went to the Paddington, the Paddington police station, were asking for answers as to what happened. This built up a lot of momentum. This is, again, the first time within the UK that social media was brought into the mix, and it just exploded. And it started to almost trend within the major cities. So Manchester, London, Liverpool, all these places. And it was the worst possible time for it to happen because all police were out on holiday. And they got to the point where they thought they were going to have to call in the army. It showed very quickly exactly how much when black people get together, we can actually get done. But it would also show a lack of focus because instead of going to our members of parliament asking for justice, we went to a Foot Locker, robbed it, and burnt it down. It was a really weird time in that space. But so race is a massive thing. To answer your question, it is a massive problem I still feel within the United Kingdom, but it's a problem that with each generation I feel is almost getting forgotten and pushed aside over the fact of, oh, well, we're all one now and all that kind of stuff. I just asked my grandmother, what do you feel about Black people today? And she said, I feel they haven't moved forward 1 inch before she passed away.
She may even feel they move backwards in some ways, or what?
In some respect, morally. My grandmother was a staunch Christian woman. So when she saw me come in my first tattoo, that was tears and a 2.5 week silence treatment from grandma. That was tough. But it also showed you what gave her, in a sense, her strength to deal with the adversity of being a Black woman or a mixed race woman within that world. So yeah, that was tough. England's beautiful, but England's tough. It's one of those places that, especially in the predominantly Black areas, you can tell when somebody's not from there very quickly. It's like being in the Bronx, New York. You can kind of tell when you're not from there. But everybody at the moment right now is in a place where they feel that racism isn't as hot button a subject as it was before. And that, there's massive strides when it comes to diversity and inclusivity, which there are. I'm not dissuading that. But I'm also a big believer that there's a lot more to be done. And I don't want to run into a generation after me that forgets the lessons that we had to learn the hard way from the generations past.
Yeah, we certainly can't forget. I think that our younger generations are some of the most accepting that there has ever been in history. But
Agreed.
At the same time, we've come a long way, and we can't say that we haven't, and there's still ways to go. But I feel like the more we try to push the bar towards equality, then these other groups come out of the woodworks and they try to push it back, right? Like we saw after the Black Lives Matter movement,
Yes.
and now the big pushback that you're seeing, people are a lot more openly hateful. But not the young. The young people are, I feel even here, they're largely over that, right? It's the melting pot of the world that we want to see all across the world. A lot of young people just view everyone as equal.
It's Martin Luther King's dream come to fruition. It's literally that, little Black boys and little Black girls holding hands. We got that now, which is great. But I still have, I don't know, maybe it's my oversaturation of Marcus Garvey in my life or whatever, but there's a sense of Black independence that I'm kind of yearning for that I haven't seen yet. We're kind of at the table asking for handouts rather than creating our own tables. Does that make sense?
Well, there was so much Black independence, and it was so organized, and they burned down a lot more than Tulsa, right? There were in Canada and even across the states, there were so many Black cities and towns that were organized, and they all got burned to the ground, and they haven't been rebuilt, really, right? But yeah, no, Hillary and I definitely resonate with what you're saying, and we talk about this a lot,
Yeah, we talked about some of this last week in the sense that, like, I think I was the one who had said, like, we shouldn't have to need more Black people to be murdered for there to be a riot, for people to care about Black people. And I also circle back to a lot of what Carolyn Purcell continues to say around, like, psychology, the Black psychology.
Can we just say thank you for Carolyn Purcell? Can we just give a minute to say Carolyn Purcell? Carolyn Purcell.
She's going to end up being a guest on this show.
She needs to be. What a wonderful, empowering woman. But anyway, yes.
Yeah, so for Clinton has heard of her, but she actually just finally released a report she did with York University, actually talking about racism in the workplace.
Women, Black women. Yes, I saw that on Instagram. Yes.
Yeah. So I got to be privy to the report from my Black's article, which is very cool. But
amazing.
It's essentially just the idea that, like, if you don't have Black people in leadership, then all of these Black women don't feel like they can speak up in terms of their leadership roles, as we all know.
Yeah.
They're afraid of losing their jobs. They're afraid of being racially profiled. They're afraid of colorism. They're afraid of everything under the sun. So it's not actually a diverse, equity, inclusive workplace if you're just tackling 3 of the things, or you put out a policy and then you actually don't follow up with it. And all of this to say, to your point, it's always like 1 step forward, 3 steps back, because we ask for a slice of the pie, we get some of the pie, and then it turns out that, like, there's missing ingredients. Some of the pie is rancid. There's mold on one edge, but at least we got the slice. And so it's never perfect. And to my point last week, why do people got to die for us to talk about the pie? And Carlin's like, I'm releasing a report about the pie. Here's what needs to be in the pie.
Here's what's wrong with the pie. Yeah, no, and I think that's the kind of conversation that needs to be happening right now with the generation coming up for us. Clinton, to your point, for all the inclusivity that they're now experiencing, not experiencing being spat on, not experiencing in your face, at least racism, that's great. But it's okay, what's the next step? So to your point, it's the fact of, okay, we're going to this table and we're looking at what the table is actually made of. Is it an IKEA, beautiful, well-made, Swedish table, or is it rickety and we found it on Craigslist and it's, like you said, got some mold on it, it's missing a leg, but we're accepting that because that's better than being sucked upon by dogs and blown away by, hoses back in the 30s and 40s and that. So I get that. But yeah, there's a lot of work to be done in so many different stratas within the Black community. It's a hell of a task, but it's something that has to happen because the relay race of life right now is super important. That next generation, that Zoomer generation that went through COVID and, got the iPads and everything, we're the ones looking to them to take this forward.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say, because I really want to ask you more about you, and we never know where these conversations are going to go, and you're saying such interesting things, is even though the young people seem to not be as focused on racism, that doesn't change the structural institutional racism that exists, and then that's where the change really needs to take place, right? It doesn't break down systemic racism and people in power using their power to oppress certain populations and stuff like that. That's still happening, and some of these young people are going to grow up and be taught by their parents to do the same thing. So
correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, in terms of asking questions about you, though, to be fair, I was heading this way because I know you, and I know that I know that in terms of outside of your job being in luxury sales, I know that it is sort of a personal mandate of yours to engage with Black community in this way. That you do, Sorry, I think Max is trying to get into the big bag in my room and knock everything over as per usual. I know that it's part of your personal endeavor and mandate to connect with all of these Black community leaders, organizers, and be a part of it. And I was going to ask to what point, why? Because it does not every. My very interesting conversation with Carlin, we talked about the fact that that rest is resistance because it's so tiring and even for Clinton and I to constantly be talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly of being Black, of racism, of being a race that is not the one that is in charge. Yeah. And sometimes it seems to me, thinking about luxury sales sounds so beautiful and glamorous, would be so easy to just nose to the grind, do the job. But I see you not only out there at every single event that I'm at, but also, caring about and trying to do as much activism work and support as you can in that role. Why? And why not?
That's great question. Absolutely great question. For me, I guess when I came back in 2018, what really kind of bothered me the most, beyond everything else, I ran into a lot of my friends who are Black and live here in Canada. And despite all the diversity and inclusivity and all the support, they were still where they were at. And that was part mentality and that was part situational in terms of the structure that they're in. So I'm having conversations with people, and I'm having conversations with people who are in the Black community who have made something of themselves in whatever space, whether it be in fashion or design or tech or whatever. But there's no interconnection between all of those people. There's no network. And that kind of sparked something, but also concerned me because, again, I found whether it comes to racism, over in the UK or whatever, we still have those situations where things become like a powder keg, but when it comes to the organization and structure of that powder keg and how to kind of focus that energy, it all seems to end up looking like Ghostbusters and just kind of going in random swells all across the page. I don't like that. So for me, it's kind of like, how can we pull together a network of Black people that are all doing things at a very high level? Partly as the mentors towards the next generation of how to do that, but also the fact is, if I today wanted to start a small business, do I have a Black lawyer that I could connect with? Do I have a Black doctor that I could go to if I have a certain health ailment who will understand the cultural effects of my culture and what comes with, the health concerns that I have as a Black person? So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. The networking is to understand exactly where the Black community is at the moment and what things are. Oh, Hillary's gone. And now Hillary's back. There she's
there. Sometimes these things cut out. She'll likely be back any moment. Yeah.
Haven't spoken to my father in 2 weeks. He chooses now to call, and my MacBook is like, well, your camera's being used elsewhere. No, it's not. I hung up on the man. Please hold while I try to sort out my life.
I love that.
Gotta fix those MacBook settings.
Oh,
Apple is the bane of my existence. Anyway, please continue.
No, so
yeah. So for me, it's been a very single mantra of mine, and I spoke to Hillary about this. It is something that makes me extremely angry when I think about the fact of how non-connected Black people are here. And I'll take Canada because that's all I have to work as a frame of context when it comes to having a network. When it comes to growing, whether it be a business or just yourself. So I spend a lot of time now going to these events within the fashion space and the fashion retail space, not because I'm some kind of avid party animal. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't even eat sugar.
Okay.
I don't believe in those things because for me personally, health-wise, it just doesn't do anything. But what I do believe is in the fact of if I meet you, Clinton, and you're doing something, I may have met somebody 3.5 weeks ago that's doing something else that you may need to connect on. Maybe the universe needs to get you guys together on something. So is there a way of making that more formal? I'm sure there is. And that's what I'm going to work towards going forward for here and now, starting within the fashion world, because it's a world that I understand and it's a template I can grow out and kind of test the results on. But I think it should be something that in future, not being segregated, as in the fact that we all come to the table together, but I think that we are really now at the place right now where we need to build a structure of what our table looks like for Black people. So if that structure means that, again, if we are challenging our young people today to be the top lawyers, the top doctors, the top people within the STEM reaches, all of that kind of things, it starts now. It doesn't start 2 months from now. It doesn't start with a grant. It starts right now for the conversations that we're having. And any opportunity we can have to push somebody forward, we need to do that and give them an opportunity. Now, one thing I'd spoken about with I don't know how many people was there's a Jewish saying or a concept called fatim, which basically means that when you only deal with your own people, and that's not in a racial sense, it's just in the fact that, all right, my community to my community, right? So with fatim, you'll go to that person and say, for example, I want you to build me a chair. You'll build me that chair. Now, if I sit on that chair and it collapses, I'm going to chew you out for building a crap chair. But then after chewing you out, I will go back to you again, expecting that chair to be better. And that's how it works. It's building towards it being better. So I feel that within the West Indian Black community as a whole, we need to start doing that more. We unfortunately hold a very different customer service, at least, expectation for our Black restaurants in terms of service than any other restaurant that we interact with. And that ball, I see. I just he did the.
Well, I'm thinking of the last year. What was that Jamaican chain in Toronto that just got torn to pieces?
Is it Sunrise? No, it's not Sunrise. No.
It's either Irie or Sunrise, or
I think it might be Sunrise.
It was all over social media. It was independent. Possibly. I remember going to when I was younger, a Jamaican restaurant chain that they got too big for the people. Like they franchised, they spread out. They had all these locations everywhere, and then maybe the quality of the food did go down, but the way they were brought down, like we see so many other Black people, institutions, businesses. You're right, facts. And I didn't mean to interrupt you. Finish your thought,
please. You're absolutely right, because for me, that's what scares me, because the fact is, we are Black people are the first people to tear down their own people, rather than going around and saying this is, hey, welcome back, saying this is saying this is the way it should be done forward. We have all the templates we have to make successful restaurants and businesses here. I can tell you right now, I can go to a major fast food chain like McDonald's, whether I go here, Moncton, Paris, China, I know what service I'm getting. I know what quality of food I'm getting, and I know the consistency I'm going to receive it at. So we need to hold ourselves within our businesses at the same level. That also means having people who are business consultants and business references to be there to offer those challenges and that information. But we don't have a network to even start like that. So we're kind of just taking that as being, oh, well, they're kind of doing it, kind of like the moldy analogy earlier. We're kind of doing it, so we'll accept. Yeah.
We don't, and it's so complicated and disheartening, because in the one respect, we were kind of taught to not trust each other and hate each other through the heritage of slavery, right? And
the field versus the house,
like trying to get exactly. That's what I was saying. And not only that, I mean, when you think about the concept of what Black even means, sure, there's Black people from the West Indies, there's Black people from North America and Canada who've been here for 400 years, there's Black people from the UK, and there's Black people from all over Africa. Correct. And I mean, when you ask the question of what is Black, you're referring to Fatim and the Jewish community. Well, we're all humans, but we're all from different cultures, and Fatim Jewish people, they have a sense that they're all from the same place. But what is Black, and where is Black from? The thing that makes us all Black is that we're in North America or in the Western world, and sometimes culturally, even though we have the same color skin, the main thing we have in common is that we're oppressed, and we don't want to be oppressed, and we want to be treated as equals. But after that, we all need to work together here, but there can be that complicatedness, because we all may come from 100 different countries and do things very differently, and we somehow have to find a way to synergize that and make it all work here in the Western world. You see yourself as sort of a networking guru who sees the intrinsic value in connections, connecting people, and like Hillary does this too, and I try to keeping a mental database of who would be well connected with each other to grow each one of us step by step, one person at a time.
I think sorry, to your point, networking with Hillary, just to add, networking with Hillary is an absolute dream because she's like a Rolodex of information.
She
she really is, right? Just wanted to put that out. I have nothing else to say besides that. Continue.
Between Hillary and I, we know who keeps us. I get the work done, but we know who keeps us organized and making sure that I get the work done. She gets the work done.
Fantastic.
I've told her, don't ever stop nagging me because it's
all useful.
I think your mic's off, Hillary. I'm teasing, but no, Hillary is she's great. I'm in awe of the way she networks and connects and communicates and puts herself out there to make things happen.
All I was saying is I love nagging both of you. And also, I think we should just have Ivor on every single week if I'm going to get complimented for this much of the time. Would you like to be our third host?
I would love to. I'd love to guest in here once a month, just to check in and make sure you guys are okay. Just make sure that she's not bullying you too much and that you're not 100%.
We'll send you the link. You just pop in mid recording. You guys good? You guys treat
Bam! You guys good? Great. And then bounce out. Literally.
I'll be like such a hilarious bit to anyone who's like not really paying attention. It's like, who's this other guy?
Like an ongoing joke.
Yeah.
Shows up every 6 episodes.
Yeah, exactly. Minute 52. Hey guys, just wanted to let you know, sponsored by, and then leave. That's like great.
We could just record you doing it and just put it in. Like you don't even have to show up every time. We could just be like, this is Ivor's minute.
Love it.
Anyway,
as
you were saying.
Well, I'm done. I'm just to say like, okay, well, this is great. Like we are talking about you. We are talking about you and who you are. These are not just some thoughts you have. This is a core of who you are, advocating and connecting and speaking about the importance of communities and working together and branching out and stuff like that. So we're right on brand. We're right on track. Yeah. This is great.
Thanks. Good.
So I didn't miss another question. We're still good. I missed nothing while my computer was.
Nope.
My father was trying to contact me for the first time in eons. I hope my stepmom listens to this episode and is like, call your daughter more. So I wanted to ask, because obviously we've like hinted at your job and your work, luxury sales, and we won't say where, but I am curious, and I worded it specifically this way. I would love a demystification of it, because I think that there's this perception, especially here, where like Fashion Group International has these types of positions on a directory where it's possible to work your way up, but there's a lot of people who don't know how to get from a regular retail store to that higher level of luxury sales and like what that entails. How do you get into that position personally yourself, and for anyone listening who's like, I want to sell Gucci, Dolce, name a brand, any brand, how do I do this?
Okay, hit me with a top end question. So I was fortunate enough to had a situation which snapped me into focus quite quickly. So as Hillary knows, but as you know, your viewers may not know, and Clinton, you won't know. So I had my first child, my first daughter at 19.
Yeah, I could have guessed
19.
that.
Oh, yeah. So that changes your perception on the world. So it goes, and 19's a very it's a wonderful age. You're still a kid yourself. You're still a kid yourself.
I was 1 month into being 20. Yeah.
So you know, okay, Clint. Okay,
Go on.
After this, we're talking. All right. But you understand exactly where your mindset kind of changes. It goes from a side of being, you know, like I'm 19, I'm having fun, let's go out drinking, to baby. There's a baby right there, and everything that I do now is either going to facilitate the positive or negative outcome of that child. So I was lucky enough to realize at the exact same time that I like talking. That was it. That was literally it. That I was able to, convince people, or at least kind of educate them on a certain thing. And I just kind of pushed myself towards sales with that. I'm a big believer that everything's selling. Everything that we do in life is selling. You're selling to your kids to go to bed. You're selling to the parking meter guy to not give you a ticket. You're selling at most, if not all times. So there are just some people who's had a lot more practice, and you've seen them. You've seen the kids that are with their parents negotiating on what time to go to bed, and they're really going hard in the paint. They're really like, but mom, let's think about yesterday. Yesterday, I only slept 6.5 hours, but actually today I only need about 5.5 hours because they're really going in. So sales, I feel, Sales, I really feel, is everybody has an inherent power to do so. It's just who discovers how to kind of sharpen that saw as they go through life. I was lucky enough to have that situation where the force of having my daughter and having her future secured, paired with me understanding my latent ability, came together in a lucky moment. And I just kind of went through sales. And there are different type of salespeople in the world, Hillary. To your point, there are people who are storytellers, I find, and there are people who are technical salespeople. And your technical people will go to technical stuff. They'll sell you an iPhone. They'll sell you a car. They'll tell you it goes from 0 to 60, gas mileage, color, tone, pop. They'll sell that. Then there's other people that will sell you the dream. Like, I want you to sit down for a minute, Clinton, and I want you to picture yourself. Just do something for me. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. I want you to picture being in a Lexus. Now, think of this. The leather is soft on the steering wheel. The air conditioning's kind of slightly on, but not completely on. You're waiting for your wife to come back to the car with your kid. Now open your eyes. $95,000, please. That's you're.
No doubt. Where do I? So contract. Oh, this was pretend. Oh.
But that's a.
I felt it though. I felt it.
Literally, you felt it. But that's the thing.
Well, when you talked about China, like I felt. I
literally.
Your story. I literally said I felt your story. I felt like I was there. Okay.
I appreciate that. And that's the thing for me.
Yeah,
some people can do that. Some people can't. So when you're going into sales, you kind of try to figure out exactly what your strength is if you want to do sales. And understand that if you can sell makeup at a counter, you can sell a house. You can sell a yacht. Shout out to you. You can sell anything. So for a lot of people, it's that self-discovery. It's having the opportunities and going through and doing that. It is studying your craft. I did a lot of research to figure out why. I love understanding people. Maybe it's a star sign thing, but I love understanding people. I really, really do. So when I literally have an interaction with somebody, I'm trying to dig as much as possible to figure out what makes you tick, because I'm generally interested in your life story. And that's kind of, what I pull towards sales. That's one thing I want to understand. It's exactly what motivates you to come and get this item. Why are you looking for something? Is it one of the major moments in your life? Is it your wedding? Is it a birth? Is it something else? That's what I really want to understand. And then you're having that conversation that wraps around with it. And the experience side of things is it's talking to people at clubs. It's talking to people when you're sitting down on a bench. Can you strike up a conversation with anyone randomly at any time? That's kind of a really big thing for me across there as well. And then, I was lucky enough to just kind of, fall into a role where I got to put my skills on display and continue to build them. But I really, again, in wanting to understand where all these latent skills came from, I started to do my research. And one of the things I found was, who was the first people that started to really do sales differently? And the person I stumbled upon was a guy named Edward Bernays. Now, Edward Bernays was considered the grandfather of public relations. Edward Bernays was the nephew of Sigmund Freud. And he figured out very quickly that if you can get emotional connection to a situation, people will pay whatever you want them to pay. So he was the first person to make the emotional connection to a lot of things. But one thing he did that was extremely kind of groundbreaking, Marlboro cigarettes came to him and they said that their sales had pretty much plateaued. So every man on the planet was smoking in the United States of America. Every man. It was just a part of that. But obviously women weren't. Now, at that time, there was a stigma that women shouldn't be smoking because it was considered unladylike, blah, 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 blah. And they brought in Edward Bernays to kind of figure out how would they break that. So he decided that he would get 50 notable socialites to go to the New York New Year's Day parade and bring in their garter belt a single cigarette. And at a set time, let's say 12:30, they would all pull out this cigarette as they were in mass in the middle of this parade, and they would light the cigarette, and during the suffragette movement, light them as torches of freedom or torches of independence. And with that, everybody went, oh my God, and their sales went through the roof. He realized right then, if you can tie in an emotional connection to a product, you have a sale. And he started to do the focus groups. He started to work. One of the other stories that I found was amazing was, Sara Lee cakes? The cakes that you kind of have the mix for. So basically, Sara Lee cakes, it's just a basic mix. They couldn't figure out why their sales weren't stronger than they were. It's super simple. You put the mix in, you put it in there, you put it in the oven, it's done. It should be very simple. What he found through focus groups, sitting down groups of mums or women in that space and asking the questions, he realized quite quickly that actually they felt that it was cheating and that actually they were cheating their role as mothers and care providers. So they decided to add an egg to the mix, it being psychologically like adding your own egg to the mixture, but also from a physical point of view, you're doing something to be a part of that actual creation process. And the sales skyrocketed. I tell you these stories because you've got to understand that everything that we're now interacting with today in 2023, whether it be our culture, what we do in terms of what we're, what we say or what we buy, it's all been manipulated and driven in a very certain way. There's a reason why everybody wants to have the newest car and all that kind of stuff. Not because the cars are, crazy different. All cars do the same thing. They get you from A to B. But one gets you to A to B and tells everybody that you're rich, and one gets you to A to B and tells everybody that you might drive an Uber. Not saying Uber drivers can't be rich, but I'm just saying it says something different. So that's kind of where my push is from that. That's where sales kind of rolled for me. Do the research.
I mean, that was amazing. I felt like I was in a little lecture learning about like marketing and sales. Like really, you got to go do that talk that we were told to go co-do. We gotta get a podium.
But it's I love it. I love the data behind it. I love to understand what makes people tick. Like, it's great.
Well, I knew that. I knew that when I was standing in the store and like 3 minutes in was somehow divulging the secrets of New York Fashion Week. And I was like, why am I telling this man these random, inappropriate things that have happened? And thank God we're still friends, or else I'd have to like send an NDA based on what you know.
Can I just tell you, it's because genuinely I vibed with you, genuinely. But also
the nod. We know
exactly. But also one of the other things that you understand from sales from the get-go is mirroring. Mirroring. So you're mirroring a few things. Body language is a big thing for me. So you mirror body language, you mirror the fact of your openness, you mirror your, smiling, you're smiling, eye contact 70-30, all those things are running through your head. But it's also the type of questions that you ask a person. People love to hear about themselves. People love to talk about themselves. So if I ask you, so what'd you guys do in New York Fashion Week? Oh, we went here and da-da-da. Oh, that's crazy. Where'd you go? Da-da-da. I've been to Madison Avenue. You've been da-da-da. Before you know it, you've built a sense of familiarity that you didn't actually know was there. This is unfortunately what happens when we get pickup artists that go and pick up random guys or girls at clubs. They do the same thing. They mirror what they're saying. It's like, oh my God, I love yoga. I've been a big yoga fan all my life. Do you know this pose? Oh yeah, I do. Oh. And then we're in a really weird place. Yeah.
I don't know if it's a weird place. It sounds like a yoga studio, but I get what you mean.
Let's hope. Let's hope. That's what PG-13 I'm going to get. Let's hope. Yeah.
But outside of needing to, or at least figuring out, outside of your personal life, anyone who wants to be working at these fancy places, outside of being like, I'm good at sales, do you have to do anything specific to be able to work at one of the luxury places versus, I don't want to name a place and be like, you're trash, but like, obviously not Walmart, somewhere in between Walmart and all the stores at Yorkdale Mall.
First of all, Walmart's fantastic. McKinsey Consulting, most of those people are McKinsey and MBA. Anyway, in terms of you look at the top, the CEO level, they're all McKinsey Consulting, X-Reference and all that. But anyway, I would say the first thing to do is be very focused on where you want to go. So 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, start with the end in mind. Where do you want to go? I want to be the manager of said store. Okay. What is that going to take? And this is probably one of the biggest challenges I face as a manager of people in this generation, is that it takes time, and everybody's time poor. So everybody assumes that they're already it, though they have no experience of it. Right. I've been doing this for 17 years. So this all comes off the cuff from 17 years of having those conversations, meeting people yelling at me and asking for refunds, all that kind of fun stuff. That's 17 years of that. So there's going to be a certain amount of time that you need to build that up. 2, and it sounds very much like a self-help book, do not chase money. Bless you. Do not chase money. It is more about the fact of what brands click with you, what you love about fashion. If you love avant-garde fashion, go to an avant-garde fashion house, and start from scratch. Literally, if you're a stock person in that space, you're in the space, and the trajectory is much easier. Most companies are looking to willing to kind of promote within than take a chance on somebody from the outside, because they understand the culture and they can work from that. So that's one thing I would say, definitely to do that. If you're going to go look for a job and you're going to start walking the streets of Toronto or whichever city you're in, for the love of all that's holy, please buy a suit that fits. Male or female, buy a suit. Buy a suit. Buy a suit that fits, get it tailored, and come with your resume ready to go. Come with an understanding of the place you're going to. Do not walk into, let's say, Walmart and not know anything about Walmart, because the first question that any manager is going to ask you is, what do you know about Walmart? And you're going to stand there, you're going to go, whereas I've had people that have come in and told me, oh, well, I know that Walmart was started by the AA brothers back in this time, and they da-da-da-da-da. That might be something they learned on Wikipedia 2 days before, but it shows there's an innate understanding of what the culture is, as well as the expectation of being able to learn information as you go. I'm already looking at your resume in a different way. Resumes are another thing. Should be no more than 3 pages maximum. If you've got a lot of experience, great. It should be bullet point. It should be concise. It should have a very catchy opening title. Mine says proactive, productive, and pacey. That's literally the 3 P's that I have in the beginning. Since I worked as a paperboy as 14, all that kind of stuff. It's got to catch your attention and hold your attention. Yes, it was a paperboy. It was a great job. I loved it. See Clinton laugh. He's like,
no, bro. That was my first job.
Exercise,
early hustle,
outdoors, chased by dogs, rain. It was great. I loved it.
No, I'm not knocking any of that. No. That was my first job. Yeah.
That's your first job as well. And I'd say that's kind of like the big ones for me. So yeah, again, be very specific of where you want to go. Make sure that when you do go there, you're dressed the part, and come with a resume that doesn't have any grammatical or spelling errors and is catchy and all that kind of fun stuff. That's pretty much it.
These are great principles that apply to not only the industry you're in, but all industries. All Correct. Sales, all dreams, all goals, all aspirations. Yeah. You two were approached about doing motivational speaks. I think you should do that. There's lots of great hot takes and tidbits from this that we can make teasers from that could just be used for motivating people for weeks to come.
Next week one's gonna be fire.
I just want to make the joke, but it's sort of but somebody thought or claimed that they knew who Ivor worked for at one of the events we were at this week, and then proceeded to show us work from a brand that was a completely different brand for a solid minute. Oops. It was just like, yo, I love the work that you're doing. And I was like,
and I love the fact that we both looked at this person and then ourselves like, yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you so much. And then walked off.
And just walked off. That's the Walmart joke of not knowing. This guy was like, oh, I think your stuff is amazing when you did this and you did this. And I was like, polka dots? I don't think you doing polka dots.
It's one thing that really hits me. Like when I have people walk into my location or any location, people walking with a resume, and I've seen, and for example, I had one where I was located in a mall and they had like a career day. And for my brand to be a part of that was already like, why are you guys here? And for me, again, it's going back to the fact that I like to connect with people, but also as a person within the Black community, I'm thinking I'm probably going to see a lot of people from my community here. And even if it's not a job offer, it's an explanation of all the points I highlighted before. Get a suit, get your resume together, get this done, da-da-da-da. So again, where can we offer help and support to our own community so that their next interaction is a bit better and is passed on? But it was funny kind of going there and kind of seeing what people were, in terms of offering, in terms of information of like where they worked, and simple questions like, why would you want to work for this brand? And they're like, I love clothes. And I'm like, that's great. That's wonderful, which is not a bad thing. But if you're not backing up with, I went to fashion design school. I've been there for 2.5 years. And I really want to get some tangible experience about what, the creative process is and what selling the garments look like. Oh, okay. So you love that. What's your favorite fashion house? And I've heard so many things that are usually just my brand. So let's say my brand, I'm like, that's great. Anything else? Any other brands that you connect with? Anything else? Nothing? Okay, well, that's fine. Again, I love to entertain those conversations, but out of those 100 people that you'll talk to, you'll find that one person that kind of says something and goes, oh, that's something there. That's always a fun time.
Amazing.
Wow. I think we have time for one more.
I think we have time for one more. Yeah, these cut off after about an hour.
It's been an hour? Madness. Okay.
I know.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Obviously.
Do you want me to ask it? It's something that we want to, yeah.
Sure. You go ahead. I took over the conversation because I know you. So.
Well, yeah, I told you before the episode, I'm happy to, let you two banter. So while learning more about the fashion scope, Hillary's told me that you've set out to amplify Black business owners as well.
Yes.
Black community groups, Black endeavors. I know you've touched on it, but can you zero in? Can you clarify and speak to why that is important to you?
Because right now Black is trending, and Black shouldn't be a trend. It should be the standard. I mean that in the most serious sense, only for the fact of I feel that right now within our culture for Black people in general, whether it be our clothing, whether it be our music, whether it be our athletes, all of those things are considered the top pinnacle of what's cool. And that's great. Now, if you're looking at the narrow scope of fashion specifically, in Canada, we have a great wealth of Canadian Black designers, creators, creatives who I feel aren't getting the platform or the chance to show what they really can do. For the brand that I work for, it does give them kind of a leg up or support, even having that brand name adjacent to their own, but also how we interconnect each person within that space. So for me, if we're looking at, designers that are in Canada that are Black, any Black actor or sports star should be wearing one of those clothings going towards whatever event they're going to. That's how we start that process of not only Canadian-based businesses, but Black-owned Canadian businesses. The ideal ambition in my mind would be to be able to remove the word Black from business and just have our businesses. At the moment, we're still sitting in that concept of having, a Black business. When we say the word Black business, it's great because we automatically signify what separates us from everybody else. But by doing that it does literally separate us from everybody. Exactly. In a negative way. And I would like it to be a place where, my business, whatever it may be, is a business. Is it owned by a Black person? Most definitely. But it's a business all the same. So that's the future ambition. But for the short term, right now, it's connecting all Black people within whatever space they're in. Whether you're a camera guy who's looking for work, whether you're a fashion designer looking for a show, whether you're a presenter looking for their next presenting job, this should be what's happening across there. And for myself and Hillary, the amount of talking that we do at all these events is just insane. But for both of us, we end up kind of, rolling around to that corner where we'll find the 4 or 5 Black people that are in these spaces, and we'll kind of not corner, but kind of like, so what is your mission here? Because I feel everybody has that general mission of, having enough money to survive and buying a house and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, what's that meta goal? What's that one that's right above there? And mine's is very simple. It's legacy. I would like it that when my kids enter into this world, and stand on their own 2 feet, they stand in a world that was left just a little bit better than where I found it when I picked up the baton. So yeah, as a core answer, legacy. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Great answer. Yeah, it is all about that legacy. Just want your goal is to have your kids do a little better than you.
It was the goal given to me.
So
what you mentioned the West Indies a bunch. Where in the West Indies is that part of your family from?
Barbados.
Yeah.
I had to say it like that. No, so my grandmother's from Barbados. She's from Boscobel, and my grandfather, my father's side, is from Jamaica. And it's really interesting because in what you were saying earlier, Clinton, about kind of, I say, interracial racism. Bajans and Jamaicans weren't supposed to mix for some reason, and Africans don't mess with Caribbeans, and Caribbeans don't mess. It's very weird how that inter separation actually works. But my grandmother was a very unique case. My grandmother was a very unique case. She was mixed race. So she always spoke to me about her generation growing up and how her father, who was white, owned most of the businesses within their local area and was called First. That was his nickname. And then obviously him marrying a Black woman, that was like controversy and all that kind of stuff. And then the inter challenges of that city, because then obviously people assumed that she thought she was better than the other Black women because she was married to a white. It was crazy. It was crazy. But yeah, Barbados and Jamaica, that's my home. But Barbados specifically, because I've visited there more and more of my family's there, I love that place. Flying fish, mott's. It's great.
Amazing. If we had more time, I'd get you to tell us more about Barbados, but
no worries.
We do
we'll just have to have you back.
I'm ready for round 2.
Every 6 episodes, right?
Yeah. 6 episodes.
Yeah, every 6 episodes.
And I said that here as well, so I can't go back on it.
Yeah, next time you'll just have to be like, are you good? Are you good? So about Barbados.
Whole other podcast. Right. But guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you as well. Hillary, do you want to take us out of here, Hillary? Yeah, it's you have a great energy. It's great to meet you. It's great to have this banter, all 3 of us. And I do look forward to talking to you.
Take us out of here, and I'm trying to remember. Like, comment, subscribe, rate. Follow at Mr. Medusa 3 as in 3. The E's a 3 and the S is a 5.
It's on the screen.
For our audio listeners, we have a lot of audio listeners. We have way more audio listeners than
video.
Yeah.
Mr. Medusa M3DU5A. Please follow me, and I will follow you.
Yeah, it's just more Hillary content. So please follow him to learn to see what Hillary's doing.
Hillary highlights.
That's golden.
Clinton Davis, Cropberry, like, comment, subscribe, rate, find us on all the platforms. This has been another episode. Did I forget anything?
No.
Am I good at my job?
I'll take us out. Yeah.